My wife let her parents stay in our house for months, but I'm not staying in that house, and I filed for divorce. Guys, this is about the in-laws again. I'm 49, and I've been married to Chelsea, 44, for 20 years. So, we're not exactly newlyweds. We have a 19-year-old daughter who moved to college 3 weeks ago. Chelsea came to me and told me her parents were coming to visit for a week. I had my reservations about them. It's not that I'm an unreasonable husband. It's just that my in-laws, especially my mother-in-law, aren't exactly my favorite people. I love my wife, and after 2 decades of marriage, I'd say we've built a solid relationship. But her mother, oh my God, she's never been a fan of mine. From the day we got engaged, she made it very clear that she thought her daughter could have done better. Honestly, my wife is extremely beautiful, with a slender figure, sharp features, and a natural charm. The way she carries herself is just amazing. I adore her, not just for her looks, but as a person. The only thing that bothers me is the way she lets her mother butt into our lives. My mother-in-law thinks Chelsea deserved better, someone better looking and definitely much richer than me. That's how materialistic she is. And it's not an opinion she's kept to herself inside her empty head. In fact, she's voiced it more than she should have. She even said it in front of my own parents, which made them really uncomfortable. She always says it as if I'm some out-of-shape loser who just got lucky marrying her daughter. Whenever we'd see each other, she'd bring it up. Chelsea takes great care of herself. You should too. Don't you want to look good next to her? Once my daughter had a heated argument with my mother-in-law when she said I should make myself worthy of Chelsea. Yes, she really said that in front of my daughter, who didn't stay quiet and talked back to her. Chelsea tried to smooth things over and apologized on her mother's behalf, but the damage was done a long time ago. I accepted a long time ago that my mother-in-law and I would never get along, so I avoided her like the plague. We had minimal interaction. I barely visited her. They only came for special occasions or holidays. We just coexisted for Chelsea's sake. So when she told me her parents' house had plumbing issues and they needed to stay with us, I was not thrilled. I mean, a week is a long time to have your in-laws in your home. Chelsea insisted they had nowhere else to go. After several days of arguing, I told myself, it's just a week. I can handle 7 days. Maybe I can even scratch the days off on the wall like one of those prisoners. I let them stay. 1 week passed, and they were still there with no signs of leaving. I casually asked Chelsea, and she informed me there was more work to be done on the pipes. I took a deep breath and thought, okay, just 1 more week. Although I was going to run out of wall space soon. Then they needed another week because the contractor discovered mold, and the house needed fumigation. I suggested to Chelsea that we put them in a hotel because I was already tired of living with them. She responded that hotels weren't suitable for elderly people, and it would look bad for us to move them for just 1 week. I told her I didn't care about looking bad. She promised me she'd keep her mother in check and wouldn't let her interfere in our lives. But my mother-in-law is simply unbearable. She can't breathe without sticking her nose in my business. Chelsea convinced me it would just be 1 more week and that her parents would leave us alone on our birthdays and holidays for the next 2 years. That sweetened the deal since I thought it was fair to have them for the festivities. It's a headache. If they were nice people, I would have gladly welcomed them, but they are insufferable. The longer they stayed, the less the house felt like mine. The first week, my mother-in-law kept quiet. In the second week, she started rearranging the living room furniture and changing out the kitchen towels for the ones she liked. My father-in-law was more tolerable, a quiet man who spent his days watching TV, reading the newspaper, and taking long naps. He didn't bother me as much, but his presence made me feel like my space was being invaded. Things got worse when I noticed my beer stash in the garage was dwindling. I always kept it restocked, but suddenly, a 6-pack would turn into a single bottle overnight. At first, I thought it was my neighbor's teenage son again. A few months ago, he snuck into my garage for a bottle of wine. I caught him, and he promised not to do it again. I was about to talk to his parents when one night, coming home from work, I saw my father-in-law drinking my last cold beer. So it was him, and I was unnecessarily blaming that kid. I didn't get upset. Instead, I calmly told him it was mine. Without flinching, he looked at me and said, "You have more." I corrected him. "I didn't have more until you drank them." He just shrugged and took another sip. "Relax, it's just beer." Yeah, it was just beer, but I wouldn't have cared if he had at least had the courtesy to ask me instead of emptying my supply. The 3 weeks were supposed to end tomorrow. Today, I reminded Chelsea that her parents should be getting ready to leave. She told me, a couple more days. Honestly, I'm so close to kicking them out of my house. Update 1. Things have gotten quite a bit worse. I don't even want to start talking about how my mother-in-law is ruining my marriage. Chelsea barely has time for me. Most weekends, she has plans with her mother, shopping, movies, or just sitting on the couch for hours, gossiping. Even during the week after work, she prefers to be with her mother instead of spending time with me. When I confronted her about it, she brushed it off, saying she wanted to make the most of this time because she'd probably never live with them again. Typical emotional manipulation, elderly parents, limited time, and the classic guilt trip. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law can't stop sticking her nose into my life. She's relentless. If she's not commenting on how I should dress better, she's reminding me to eat healthy and go to the gym. I understand staying fit is important, but the way she says it makes me want to throw her out the window. One day, I was in the kitchen making spaghetti with sausage. She came in, took something from the fridge, and looked at my food like it was poison. Then she slid in a comment about how I could improve my diet because I was getting a bit soft in the middle. They should make her a bit soft in the middle. And then, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, she said to me, "If you took better care of yourself, maybe you could keep up with Chelsea." She looked at me with that expression, like I was a charity case. Another time, I overheard her telling Chelsea, "Why doesn't he spend more time at the gym? People might think you're his daughter." Chelsea quickly shushed her, but the damage was done. I'm not a skinny guy, but I'm not obese either. And yes, Chelsea looks younger than she is. But that doesn't give her mother the right to insult me. When I mentioned this to my wife, she minimized it, saying her mother meant well, that she just wants me to be healthy. I'm not stupid. I know exactly what she's doing. She's never respected me, and now she's making sure I feel it every day. The tension in the house is unbearable. For the past few weeks, Chelsea and I have been arguing constantly. I admit I'm frustrated and annoyed, and I probably start more fights than usual. But can you blame me? Every day I come home to a house that doesn't feel like mine anymore. To a wife who puts her parents above me. To a mother-in-law who reminds me at every opportunity that I'm not good enough. And then, just when I thought this hell was about to end, Chelsea dropped the bomb. Her parents decided to renovate their house to make it more accessible for old age. New floors, handrails, a special tub, wider doors, basically, a complete remodel. It would take months, and they expected me to let them live here until it was ready. That's when I exploded. I didn't care that they were in the living room listening. "No, absolutely not. I can't stand them for one more day, and now you're talking about months?" Chelsea tried to calm me down. "I know it's frustrating, but they have nowhere else to go, and I can't kick them out. They only have me," I replied. "Listen, they can't stay here. If you can't do it, I'll do the dirty work. You have to find them somewhere else, because I can't stand a single day more." She tried to defend herself, "But your mother also stayed with us for a month last year. It wasn't remotely the same. My mother lives in another country and came for medical reasons. We hadn't seen her in 5 or 6 years, and it will be a long time before she comes back. Her parents, on the other hand, show up whenever they feel like it." The argument was horrible, but in the end, she agreed to look for a temporary place for them. In the following days, she started looking for nearby apartments, and I told myself I just had to hold on a little longer. But in the middle of all this, her mother dared to push me to the limit. I came home, and my recliner was gone. I asked Chelsea, she had no idea. Then I went to my mother-in-law. She shrugged and said, "It was old and worn out." I threw it away. I lost my mind and yelled at her with all my might. "That was my chair. You shouldn't even touch it without my permission." You know what she did? She laughed. "Oh, please, it was an eyesore. I did you a favor." I went into my room and waited for Chelsea to get back from work. As soon as she walked in, I exploded. "I want them out now." She looked at me with teary eyes and said, "I can't kick them out, honey. They're my parents." And I yelled, "And this is my house. I've been patient, but I don't even feel like I live here anymore." She asked for one more week. She said she needed time to find them somewhere else. I told her, "No, it has to be now. If you don't kick them out, I'm leaving. Not tomorrow, not in a week. Now." She fell silent, staring at me. Then she walked out of the room and called me irrational. We haven't spoken since then. And the worst part? She doesn't even seem affected. She's out there happily chatting with her parents, laughing like nothing happened, while I'm here feeling like a stranger in my own house. Until now, I put up with it because I didn't want to destroy a decades-long marriage over something silly. But this is destroying my mental health. I don't know how much more I can take. Addition. For those complaining that I say such ugly things about my in-laws, they're jokes. And even if they weren't, I think they've earned it. Some people are so sensitive. Update 2. I'm divorcing Chelsea. Yes, it's come to this. I tried to be patient. I tried to endure. I tried to find a solution. But now I see it's all been in vain. After that fight, I spent the night awake, unable to close my eyes, my mind spinning with the same thoughts. But what bothered me the most wasn't just the lie, but Chelsea's absolute indifference. She's not even considering my side, only her parents, when I've considered her parents much more than the initial week. The next morning, without saying anything, I took my car and drove 2 hours to my in-laws' house. I needed to see with my own eyes what was really going on, and what I found made every minute of that trip worth it. There was another family living in my in-laws' house. You might think they were people who had illegally entered the house after it had been abandoned for I don't know how long. But then I looked closer, and no, they weren't intruders. They were living there legitimately. The curtains were drawn, the lights were on, there were children's toys on the porch. Nothing about that house suggested it was undergoing renovation. I had already made the trip, so I wasn't going to leave empty-handed. I knocked on the door to ask who they were. A man in his late 30s opened the door and looked at me curiously. I introduced myself and asked him who he was. His answer told me everything. He was the tenant. I asked if the house was being renovated. He looked at me surprised as if I were crazy. I have no idea what you're talking about. We've been living here for weeks. We rented this house from Mrs. Insert my mother-in-law's name for 5 years. They rented their house and lied to my face, saying it was being renovated. They were using me. I thanked the man, turned around and walked to my car, feeling like a complete idiot. So this was what was happening behind my back. It was all a lie. They never intended to go back. It was all planned. They used me as their damn backup plan, and on top of that, they took my beer. I drove back in silence. 4 hours spent going there and back, 2 hours there, and 2 more back, boiling inside. I could have put on heavy rock music the whole trip. It was the most fitting thing for how I felt at that moment. The worst part is that this lie wasn't just from my in-laws. Chelsea had to know. I no longer saw her as someone caught between her husband and her family. No, she was part of the plan. She had been playing me this whole time, and I was blind enough not to see it. When I got home, I walked in and slammed the door. Chelsea was in the kitchen, laughing and chatting with her mother as if nothing had happened. She barely looked at me until I walked straight towards her and yelled, "Do you want to tell me why the hell there's a family living in your parents' house?" She went blank, completely bewildered. "Wait, what? You drove all the way there?" "Yes, I did. I needed to see with my own eyes if you were lying to me. And, surprise, you were." She tried to grab my arm. "Let's talk privately." I pulled away immediately. "There's no more privacy in our lives. You manipulated me into keeping your parents in my house indefinitely." She was speechless and looked at her mother for support. And there was my mother-in-law, sipping her tea as if this didn't affect her. And to top it off, she had the shameless audacity to smile and say with a sigh, "It was only a matter of time before he found out. I told you to tell him sooner." Then she added more salt to the wound. "God knows why you're so afraid of him. You should be thankful you stayed with him." Chelsea tried to intervene, but there was nothing she could say to fix this now. I thought that with time, you'd get used to them being here. If there was any doubt before that my wife was plotting with my in-laws, there was none left now. She had planned, manipulated, and executed the plan behind my back. I looked at her one last time and said, "You betrayed my trust. I'm done." I walked to our bedroom, took out a suitcase, and started packing my things inside. Chelsea followed me and started arguing, "You're overreacting." Overreacting? Your parents rented out their house and lied to my face while they made themselves comfortable in mine, and you allowed it, and you think I'm overreacting? I was the last one to find out they were going to move in here. She tried to stop me as I was leaving. She grabbed my arms tightly and whispered, "Don't do this in front of them." I pulled away and walked out. I checked into a hotel. A week passed. Not a call, not a message, nothing. Her mother completely had her under control, I'm sure. She probably said, "Don't cave in so much. He'll come crawling back." A week later, Chelsea finally texted me, "Come back. We need to talk." I replied immediately, "I won't come back until your parents are gone." Her response was instant this time with a voice message. "That's never going to happen, so get used to it." That was the end. The next day, I hired a lawyer and filed for divorce. I gave him all the details, and he told me she would receive the papers in a month. Yesterday, I went back home to pick up my things. When I walked in, my mother-in-law had a look of satisfaction. She looked at me as if she was saying, "I told you so. You came crawling back." She had no idea I wasn't there to stay. I was just picking up what was mine. I went straight to the bedroom. Chelsea followed me and started attacking me. "I told you not to make a scene in front of them. Now, thanks to you, my mother thinks I'm a doormat in this marriage." I didn't say a word. I just kept packing. "Now come apologize in front of them so we can finish this." I let out a laugh in her face and kept putting my things into the suitcase. She took a deep breath and asked, "How long are you going to keep this up?" I didn't even look at her. I just replied, "It's over. I already filed for divorce. The movers are coming for the bigger stuff tomorrow." In reality, I hadn't hired anyone, but I wanted to add drama to what I was saying. It was so she'd know I was serious because I was. She laughed, shaking her head. "You're kidding." I closed the suitcase, looked at her, and winked. "You'll find out soon enough." Chelsea started repeating over and over, "You can't be serious. How can you get a divorce over something silly like this?" She tried to stop me again, pleading with me to sit down and talk, but I was already done with the talking phase. Again, she tried to hold me, and again, I pulled free and left. This time, she was crying. Her mother stepped in. "Let him go, Chelsea. He's always been dramatic. He'll be back in a week." More than for Chelsea, I'm waiting to see her mother's face when her bubble bursts. They rented out their house and thought they could stay in mine forever. They were wrong. I'm getting my house back. I'm getting my life back. More updates soon. Update 3. Chelsea received the divorce papers, and I don't think the scene was pretty, but I can only imagine it. According to her calls later, as soon as she had them in her hands, she completely lost it. Within minutes, my phone started blowing up. Missed calls, voice messages, texts, one after another, flooding my screen nonstop. They were the, "What the hell is this? Are you serious?" type. At first, I left her on red. I wanted to see what level her desperation and chaos would reach. I knew she wasn't ready to accept what was happening yet. Then the emotional manipulation started. I didn't know it would go this far. I was just trying to be a good daughter. I thought our bond was strong enough to overcome this stage. It was such a predictable speech, so empty of any sense of responsibility, that I just laughed as I read her message. When I finished watching her attempts to make me feel guilty, I blocked her. That's when she showed up at my office. She breezed past the receptionist as if she owned the place. She burst into my office and slammed the door shut behind her. "You're really doing this? You're divorcing me over my parents?" It took me exactly 1 second to correct her. "I'm not divorcing you because of your parents. I'm divorcing you because you lied, you manipulated, and you let them take control of my life without a second thought. I'm divorcing you because you took me for granted." She was crying and begging me to find some way she could change my mind. I felt lonely after our daughter left for college. I was dealing with empty nest syndrome, and my parents were also alone. The three of us thought it would be better to be together, truly. That was her justification. And where was I in that decision? I looked at her in disbelief. "If you felt lonely, or if you were having these thoughts, why didn't you talk to me? Why did you decide this without me?" Her face said it all. She had never thought about that. It had never crossed her mind that I was also part of the equation, because in her world, her mother dictated the rules, and she just followed them. And in the end, I got a confession about how things had been. My mom told me to tighten the leash. She said you'd get used to them staying there. She said you'd adapt, just like my dad follows everything she says without questioning it. She told me that was the secret to a long and happy marriage. That explained a lot, like the fact that my father-in-law needed so much beer. I was speechless. I just looked at her, trying to decide if I was more surprised or more disgusted. That was her example of marriage, that I should simply adjust and let her and her mother manage my life as they wished. Everything made sense now. It wasn't just her parents' presence, it was her mindset. She started crying harder, trying to give me some kind of apology or justification for something. "I'm sorry. I should have listened to you. I should have put you first. Please give me another chance." I replied, "You don't understand, do you? It's not just one thing. It's everything. Your mother has always disrespected me, and you've done nothing to defend me. Not only that, you've hidden something as serious as them moving in with us, and you think that's okay? Do you really think I'd be fine when I found out? That I'd stay quiet like your father, just drinking another beer to drown my misery?" She responded, "I was scared, okay? Scared of disappointing my parents, scared of upsetting my mom." "And now you're scared of losing me?" I said. "But you lost me the moment you chose them over me. That means your fear of losing me wasn't as great as your fear of losing your parents." She reached to take my hand. I pulled away. "Don't do this. Don't throw away 20 years of marriage for this stupid reason." I stared at her. "You threw it away first, and now please leave." For the first time, she realized it was the end. There were no more pleas, no more excuses. The process is still ongoing, but in a few months, she'll be nothing more than my past. And honestly, this is something that should have happened a long time ago. Update 4. I've been asked for an update on my story as if there's no tomorrow with the divorce completed, especially with the division of assets. I guess this is the best time to do it. No, my ex-wife accepted the divorce, which made things simpler, except for the house. We had to decide who would keep it, or if we would sell it. This is the part where I became petty, but I think it was justified. I always wanted to keep the house. There are several reasons. I liked it. I had my things like my tools there. I liked the neighborhood and my neighbors, and it wasn't too far from my job. So my plan was to buy her share and move back in. But it's not like my ex-wife and in-laws could go back to living in their house. They have a 5-year lease with the tenants. While my ex couldn't afford my share of the house, her parents could. That's why their counteroffer was that they would buy my house. And this is where I was petty because I thought, if I can't live in my house, none of them will either. So I told her no, that if there was no way for me to buy her share, then we would have to sell it. That led us to months of negotiations. Finally, they agreed to sell me their part. And yes, it wasn't just my ex-wife who made the decision. I'm sure of that. As for the rest, the divorce was pretty standard. I haven't had to pay spousal support, and my daughter is old enough not to need child support. During these months of negotiations, I know my in-laws tried to get their house back, but a lease agreement is a legal document that can't be broken easily, and they learned it the hard way. They tried to annul it with a lawyer, but all they managed was for the tenant family to get 6 months of free rent. To not make the update too long and tell you where my in-laws and ex-wife are living now, they had to use all their money to buy a new house. My in-laws had to take out a new loan to cover part of the purchase. And this is exactly why I didn't want to let them have my house. I didn't want them to get away with it and succeed in their plan of living in my house while collecting rent from theirs. Not only are they not receiving rent from their old house, but now they have to pay a new mortgage. And for people their age, a mortgage isn't exactly the most convenient thing. On the other hand, my ex-wife's credit card debts made the rates and amounts even worse for her, which prevented her from buying out my part of the house. In my case, the bank was pretty good about giving me the loan to buy her share, so I have nothing bad to say about banks. In my case, they've been savior angels. That's basically what's happened in general terms. There's not much else to tell right now. Addition. I've been asked about my daughter's reaction regarding the divorce and everything that's happened, so I'm going to add this here. My daughter was very angry with her mother for what she did. Let's just say she doesn't like her grandparents much either. My mother-in-law also had a habit of making comments about her weight and appearance, which obviously created resentment in my daughter. Still, she maintains a relationship with her mother. Even though I don't want to have contact with my ex, I would never force my daughter to choose between the two of us. But something curious she told me is that my ex-wife has started dating. However, she constantly complains to my daughter that living with her parents and being 45 years old isn't exactly a magnet for winners. She may look good for her age, but the best men are already taken. And to top it off, her mother scares away the few who do show interest.